Hello, everyone, and welcome to In the Rising podcast. My name is Bettina, and this is the platform I've chosen to talk about living a life that's in alignment with your vision, your hope, your potential, even in the face of trauma and really devastating circumstances. So my podcast today is with a conversation, Ashley Michelle, who has a story that was national news, international news, and I have it linked below, just the extensiveness of her story. But you know what? There is so much light in her, and I'm excited for you to hear her testimony today. Thank you so much, Ashley Michelle, for your time today on In the Rising podcast. I really look forward to having this conversation with you today. You are the author of Finding Strength Through Tragedy, which I know a little bit about your story. Do you want to share a little bit so the listeners can know?
Sure. So this book is called Finding Strength Through Tragedy, and it's about the healing process after you go through horrific traumas. And my horrific trauma just didn't start in 2016. I believe that trauma has many layering effects. And my first trauma probably started as a child, witnessing my biological dad punch holes in the walls, etc., and being bullied in school. And then in 2016, my life took a different direction for the worst. I was assaulted on a trail while I was running in July. And then in August of 2016, I had my life literally flash before my eyes and didn't think that I was going to make it out alive for a second. My ex had just killed one of his good friends and then tried to take my life in the process. If it weren't for the support of the detectives and everybody else around me, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And then in October of 2016, I also had a suicide attempt where I just wanted all the feelings, all the emotions to stop. It was just too much. It was too overwhelming. I felt so withdrawn and I had all the support around me. And I just wanted the pain to end.
And, I listened to your story and I'm going to put the link on for other people to hear it as well. But you also said from the get-go that the detective said to you, please don't go down the route of alcohol and drugs. And so they kind of knew before you really could process yourself the severity and the depth of this trauma. Is that?
Yes, absolutely. Like that hit me hard when before they even asked me any single questions, they said, can you please make us a promise that you won't turn to the streets for drugs, for prostitution, alcohol? And that really, really hit me hard. That just goes to tell you the statistics for survivors of crime, that most survivors of crime end up turning to the streets as a result. And, some may have no support at all around them, and that's why they turn. Some may be overwhelmed by the support. Words hurt too. And I actually wrote a blog on that because so many people are quick to judge and point fingers. Oh, like I've had comments made at me like, oh, you're telling me you didn't see this coming, and just really disrespectful remarks. And if you were to tell that to a 16 or 17-year-old girl who has low self-esteem, low confidence, that would just push them to the streets that much more. For somebody that's going through trauma, you just need to be a sounding board to them. That's all they need. That's all they want.
And you made a good point with that because there are so many layers of trauma. And once you have gone through so many, your perception of right now, in any way that they say that you can't see the forest because you're in the tree, right? You can't
Correct.
see the big picture the way other people can. But what you highlighted was we could stop judging.
Yes, absolutely. We can stop judging and pointing fingers. Like, people are so quick to judge the homeless people that are on the street saying, oh, they're a drug addict. That's why they're here. Well, no, I believe that there's a reason behind the behavior. People just don't turn to the streets one day and say, I'm going to go and do drugs and be homeless. Who's to say that man on the street just didn't lose his entire home in a fire? Who's to say that he just didn't lose his family? like nobody knows what somebody else is going through. And, as difficult as everything that I was going through, I always told myself that there's somebody going through so much more. Like I volunteered in pediatrics. So I saw firsthand, the depression, the PTSD, the anxiety that so many of these parents had to face as they had the possibility of maybe losing their child. And that's a parent's worst nightmare. No parent should ever have to go through that kind of trauma. And so when I was at the hospital, it just put everything in perspective for me. It's like, you know what? These people are having a really rough day. Your day isn't so bad right now. You're alive, you're healthy, and there are people who are just struggling to get through day by day.
And you can have, excuse me, more empathy for people who are struggling with a really bad day. Because you never know who you're talking to if they've had one of those really bad days, right?
Exactly. Yes. Like people tell me like I'm so bubbly, I'm so outgoing, I'm so friendly, and stuff like this could never happen to somebody like me. And I'm just like, no. Like I actually did a placement where I worked with some teen moms, and my first relationship was actually extremely abusive. And I told them this, and they're like, oh, you're a college student. Bad things don't happen to you. Like people have this like perception that just because you're happy or you post a picture on social media smiling that your life is just perfection. And that's so not the answer. That's so not the way it actually is. Like some people want to see what they want to see, but you don't know, like behind that smile, was there just tears behind that smile? Like nobody knows what's going on behind closed doors. And yet we're just so quick to judge and so quick to point fingers.
Yeah. And the way the emotion with which you're talking, you can definitely tell that this is something that you have had experience a lot of.
Oh, I have had a lot of experience in it. Like, oh, why didn't you just leave? Oh, like this is your fault. Like, this is why I didn't help you sign your first lease. Like, that's what I had a parent say to me. Like, this is why I didn't help you out. Like, it's unbelievable. I've had even people be like, oh, well, you're just crazy, like from like going through all this. And I'm just like, no, like that's not what, and these were like family members telling me something like that. So, and people I worked with too were so quick to judge in the past. Like they're like, oh, you're telling us that you didn't see this coming, and all this stuff. And it's just like, no, you don't think somebody's going to do the most horrific thing. Your mind doesn't want to go there. Your mind doesn't want to believe that, So people they really need to watch their comments and really be aware of what they're saying, because it could have such a tremendous impact on somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned one of the first things you said is some people have a lack of support and some people have an overabundance of support.
Correct.
So you want to kind of go into both of those, how they can be helpful or harmful?
Yeah, sure. So to have no support, you literally feel a low self-esteem, you feel low confidence already. And, if you get easily introduced into a new lifestyle, like that's where you end up like turning to the streets because you think it's going to solve the problems. It's going to temporarily numb your pain, but it's not going to make the trauma disappear. Getting into drugs, alcohol, or prostitution. You're only harming yourself at the end of the day. And that's why I think it's so vital. Like the police were really good at this, was getting me counseling right away. Like there was no waiting, nothing like that. And I think that is so, so vital. And that's why proceeds too from my book go to helping survivors of crime, because it's maybe that person just needs one more counseling session to get to where they need to be. Because eventually the criminal justice board cuts you off of sessions because they don't want to provide you sessions your whole life. But what people don't understand is this is a life sentence that I've gotten. Like now I get parole packages, I get parole letters and stuff like that from the parole board. I'm now like registered with one of the police officers there to get information, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a lot to process. It's a lot to go through. And I think support is vital, but I think it's also self-discovery. And I think it's really looking at your relationships. Even if you have that abundance of support, is everybody actually in your corner? Because so many people can say anything they want, but actions speak volumes. And this is where I really had to self-reflect and looked at what relationships were helpful and positive and nourishing, and what relationships were negative that simply you just need to cut ties with. Because those relationships are only the negative relationships are only going to push you to the edge. You need people that are going to be positive, that aren't going to judge you, that are going to be listeners, that are going to be there for you no matter what. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think. You can have abundance of support, but it has to be the best support for you, because you're in charge of yourself and you're the only one looking out for yourself at the end of the day. Nobody else is. So you have to see what fits in your life and what simply doesn't fit. And you have to make those choices. Nobody else is going to make it for you except yourself. And you got to learn not to get taken advantage of. You need to learn that a relationship is give and take. It's just not take, take, take. I believe that every relationship needs to be 50-50. You can't be the one making all the effort. You can't be fighting for something if the other person's not willing to fight for it.
Yeah. And you made a lot of good points, and that giving and taking is not an assignment of the relationship, who gives and who takes, but it is a fluid situation, also dependent on what's going on, right? Sometimes we need to take a little more, sometimes we need to give. And you also highlighted the self-responsibility. Like you said, you were so overwhelmed with the amount of pain and trauma, which I just reading about it, I get a visceral response about what you've gone through. And it does seem just too much. But you also said here, ultimately, you took self-responsibility for your journey from here on out.
You did. Yeah. Like the suicide attempt was like a wake-up call for me. I really felt like I was being selfish because I was put in this spot to get justice served, take the stand and to give my statement, to give my testimony. That was my purpose. And to just simply end my life, well, that wasn't going to help bring back the deceased. That wasn't going to help make the situation go away. It was running away from the problem. And instead of running away from the problem, I chose to get in front of it and to take action with my life and go to counseling and have the right people in my life. And, the gym, oh my gosh, the gym alone literally saved my life entirely. People don't understand. They think that working out is just this huge physical component. Oh, I want to look so good. No, it's not. It's mental, it's emotional, it's everything combined. For me, it's like a mini vacation. It's me getting away from all my stressors, just being in my own zone. It is so refreshing. And especially if you're having a tough, rough day, it's nice just to get away, take a breath, and focus on yourself. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with focusing on yourself. It is not selfish whatsoever. If you make plans with people and you feel like you just don't have the energy, then it's okay to step back and, order some takeout and catch up on your favorite shows. There's nothing wrong with self-care. Self-care is vital to a healthy, better you.
And that's what my podcast is all about, is acknowledging the importance of yourself so that you can give to your family, your friends, society. But what you also said that is so important is with focusing on yourself, you are able to filter all those emotions that you're going through. Because, as a physical therapist, I see a lot of people and I'm taught not to chase the pain. Some of that pain does not have a physical origin, right? It's compound emotional stress, trauma throughout their life, like you've experienced. And you're using that energy and motion, that emotion, you're now putting out through your exercise, through your motion. So I'm glad you made that connection, because that's so true.
Well, you can't help others until you help yourself, right? You need to take the proper steps in order to get to where you need to be. And that step starts with you. You're in this life, you decide how you want to live it. You decide what relationships are beneficial. You decide what counseling is going to be right for you. Maybe it's group counseling, maybe it's one-on-one counseling. You get to decide how you want to live your life from here on out. And for me, it's just becoming the best version of myself that I can be every single day. It's to inspire and impact as many lives as I possibly can. I don't think that time heals all wounds. I think it's what you do in that time that matters. And for me, that's working out. I actually just finished doing 6 blogs this morning before talking to you. I woke up at 7 to get those done because it's amazing. Especially too, when I'm at the gym, I find myself getting all these ideas rushing through my mind. And I'm immediately texting myself being like, oh, here's another blog idea. Here's another, or I'll be sleeping. And then all of a sudden I'll wake up and I'm texting myself about another blog idea. I just feel like it is so therapeutic and it's so healing. And I've already had people share my blogs on Facebook telling me how impactful it's been for them and how much it's helped them. And that's what it comes down to for me. It's not about anything else, but helping somebody else and making an impact in their lives for the better, leaving somebody better than you found them. That's what it's about.
And there's a lot of, I call them wise people. As we go through life, we become wiser. That really the people with the most fulfilled lives lead a life of service. That is so fulfilling. And that's what you did with this book. Did you feel, I'm sure it was therapeutic, but were there parts of this book that you felt like, wow, I didn't realize that part of myself or that pain was in there? Or did you notice anything like that came about for you while writing?
Well, I noticed in a part of writing about strength is, we often really don't think about strength until we're forced to go through some horrific trauma in our life, and how important it is to have strength and grow from strength and learn from strength and have strength be a part of our everyday life. So for me, I really wanted to highlight that for other people. It was definitely, there were some challenges in it, but I found it therapeutic for the most part. And I really liked writing the chapter on who I am today. It was like writing a journal entry, you just sit there and you self-reflect on your journey and how far you've come and sharing that to help empower somebody else. I believe that every trauma is a teaching tool, a teaching lesson for somebody else. Yeah. And if somebody else can take this book that I wrote and say, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah, I was there. I understand, I've been through something so similar. I also talk about domestic violence and how, it's not just so simple to just up and leave your abuser. There's a lot of things that people don't know. On average, it takes a woman 8 or 9 times before she leaves her abuser. And, separation assault happens when you leave your abuser. And that's when you're most likely to get murdered by your abuser. So that's why it's so important to have a safety plan. I talk about that in my book too. And I talk about anxiety, PTSD, and depression because there's so much stigma around that still. People are ashamed that they have that. I'm not ashamed that I have that. It's a part of who I am now. It's, it's a learning curve. It's learning how to cope. It's learning how to deal. It's problem solving. It's a new challenge that I'm up for in my life is how can I get through this? How can I face this? And like I said, the gym's been a huge part in helping me cope with the anxiety, the depression, the PTSD.
Yeah. And with that, you talk about those feelings of PTSD. How do you feel like throughout your day that you'll still notice something, that something still triggers?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes. I live in an apartment building and I was coming up the other side of the steps and another guy was coming up the other side and I immediately jumped. I still get jumpy from time to time when I don't know, I'm very hyper vigilant and I'm very aware of my surroundings now. Like I carry a whistle when I go for a run. I stay on the main roads when I go for a run. But there are things like that are definitely challenges for me. I'm always like looking back, making sure nobody's following me. But yeah, stuff like that, just someone walking up the steps and surprising you literally makes my heart like just jump. So yeah, it's definitely, there are still some aspects that are still there. But it's learning how to deal with it. It's learning how to problem solve. It's learning how to go on. One foot in front of the other. It's hour by hour. Some days it's day by day. Sometimes it's all about being patient with yourself and knowing your triggers and figuring them out.
Mm-hmm. And, in that too, when you're talking about being hypervigilant, that's for safety and strength, but hypervigilance is also exhausting. And so you're patient with yourself because you may just feel more exhaustion, just day-to-day things, because you're so aware. Mm-hmm.
I actually wrote a blog on being hypervigilant and how I carry a whistle and how I'm so aware of my surroundings. And yeah, I still text sometimes while I'm walking, but I'm always looking, I'm always, and you're right. It is exhausting. It does take a lot out of you, but I'm just in the process of like, it's better to be safe than sorry. Like you just like, this world comes down to like a lot of bad people in this world, which I hate to say that, but there is. And I just have my eyes wide open now. I know what feels right and what doesn't. I follow my intuition. And if something doesn't feel right, I react right away. Mm-hmm. And that's where you got to take out your toolbox. That's where I still keep in touch with my detectives. Like that's when you call 911, you call the people that you're already comfortable with, that know your story. So I think it's just learning and knowing what to do in a situation like that and being as cautious as you can. Like your safety comes first. Your safety is vital. And if something feels off, you need to react right away. Don't second guess yourself.
Mm-hmm. And then ultimately we do have answers, right? We do know when something's right. We do know when something's not right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what you also said in your story is that you also struggled through survivor's guilt because this person did not make it. You were not, you were assaulted. You have your story, but you lived. How are you processing that? Because that is also much more common than we ever talk about. It's not just for veterans of war. It is also sometimes veterans of trauma.
I completely agree with you. It's an ongoing thing. I have my moments. It was just the deceased's birthday on the 3rd, which is hard like that. And then the anniversary of August 28th is coming up this month as well. I find it more challenging on those days because your mind really stops and thinks. But it's a forgiveness of self. And, you go through all this self-doubt, you go through all this hatred, you go through all this blame. And, I blamed myself for everything that happened. I was like, well, maybe if I did this for like the accused or the person that committed this crime, if I did more things to help him out, then would I be in this situation? Like, and I can't give myself all that power and control. I can't go back. I can't change things that I know that. But there's definitely that part where it's really hard and difficult to move on with your life and live your life. You want to live the best life that you can. But when you first go through the trauma, something as simple as just crossing the street, I felt so much guilt. I felt so much guilt for going to the gym, for going to the grocery store. It was just crazy. The most simplest things that you could feel guilty that you got out of a situation and somebody else didn't. That was the biggest part that I had to come face to face with. That's a lot of what my counseling was about, is really trying to process that guilt, because I definitely had a huge survivor's guilt, and it's so real for so many people. And you're right, it's not just veterans that go through it. It's people of trauma. It's survivors of crime. It's survivors of any kind of pain, heartache, and suffering, despair, and hopelessness. And it's tough to battle, but you need to like get ahead of it. You need to address it, because if you just let it build and build, it will eventually just take you out.
Mm-hmm. It'll just because you don't look at it or address it doesn't mean it's not doing something, right? We have to
Exactly
take that. And what I love the cover of your book. It's a little plant growing up. Just describe what drew you to this image for your book.
I just thought it really defined strength. This going and seeing a tree and how the tree grows, like it starts off as a seed and then it begins to grow. And it's about rebuilding and restructuring and growing as a person. So it's kind of like, I'm that little seed and then I became this tree that's like ongoing and just keeps growing and keeps healing, and I'm growing along with the tree. Yeah, that's how I look at it.
One question I like to ask people, because the podcast name is about in the rising, how you're rising through your life, like your symbolism with the tree. What do you see yourself still rising through? Like what is ahead of you that you're excited about and eager about?
I'm so excited to be launching a course. It's called Heal, and to also have a YouTube channel. I'm so excited. Like I talked about before, these blogs, like I love writing them. I sat down and like did the images, did the tags, and it was so fun. Like it doesn't even feel like any amount of work. It just knowing that one piece, that one sentence, that one word could help somebody else or bring so much joy and happiness to my life. Mm-hmm. Like that's all I want at the end of the day. I want to inspire as many individuals as I can. And I want them to know that I believe in them and that, they can and they will get through anything that life throws at them. I'm proud of every single person that has gone through hardship and that is rising above and keeps rising and keeps getting up every single day. Like that takes so much strength alone. Mm-hmm. So I just want to keep on helping and keep sharing my story, keep shining the light on all of these stigmas too around, mental health and people thinking, oh, just because you're happy that you don't have mental health. Like, you have your moments, you have your insecurities, you have your struggles. I mean, we're all human. We're all broken and damaged in some shape, way or other. That's part of our life. That's part of our world. A lot of us now too, we come from broken homes. I came from a broken home. Like, a lot of people in this day and age, they don't have a mother and father. They may have grandparents or aunts and uncles raising them, and that's okay. And, that's why I think it's so important to share my story with the world and share, even my childhood stories, because so many people are relating to not having both parents in their life. Maybe that's something else that I can help people cope with. You are who you are, and, you're made of so much strength. You have so much potential in you. It doesn't matter how you're raised, or if you're raised by two loving parents, or if you're raised by an aunt or an uncle, whatever, you are still a wonderful human being. And because other people have let you down, you cannot let that get the best of you. You cannot, or it's going to wear you out. It's going to drain you. And I think you just have to keep believing in yourself no matter what, and realize that you are an unstoppable individual who can do anything he or she sets their mind to, with the proper people, the proper support in your life, and by taking the proper steps and growing as a person, growing as an individual. Self-reflect, journal, go for those walks, go for those runs, join a gym. It's all about taking care of you. That's how you get to being the best version of yourself that you can be.
Yeah. I love that. I love that that you want to inspire people to realize they are unstoppable, because so many people do not know that. And what is the name of your blog?
My blogs it's on my website, Finding Strength Through Tragedy. Okay. So there's like numerous blogs. There's one on depression. There's one on anxiety. There's one on heartbreak after trauma. There's one on life sentence. So I kind of talk about, what it's like, because people just think after the trial, it's all said and done, and it's not. I talk about how I'm also faced with a life sentence for the rest of my life as well. Like, I have to deal with my ex now forever. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. And so I write about a lot of things that are relatable to other people, struggles that other people may be going through. And I wrote also about finding happiness after trauma. I wrote about relationships after trauma, what all of that looks like. So just really basic things in that it's okay to be happy after you've gone through trauma. It's okay to start over and live the best possible life you can for yourself. You deserve happiness. You deserve joy after all the pain, after all the heartache. I talk about, going through relationships, going through a romantic heartbreak. I talk about all of that. I just want things to be relatable to others and for people to be like, yeah, you know what? I went through that. This is really helpful. And I even list some resources, like in the domestic violence one, I list community resources. I'm just really all about giving back and helping as many people in life as I possibly can. Because let's face it, life is difficult.
Mm-hmm. It is. And so your website, Finding Strength Through Tragedy, is how people can connect to your blog, to your YouTube, to your Facebook.
My website is ashleyinspires.com. Okay. That's what my website is. Yeah. It's ashleyinspires.com. And then I have a Facebook group called Finding Strength Through Tragedy. And then I also have an Instagram of Finding Strength Through Tragedy. Okay. And then I have a Facebook page called Ashley Inspires as well.
Because I want people to know how to connect with you, whatever way.
I sent you an email with all the links.
Fantastic. Because I'll look again, because I saw the link to the. I can't, Lord. I'll text you. I'll email you because I only saw the link, but I will check because I have to scroll back and forth because I want to make sure I have it.
Yeah, I took a picture and I listed it all for you. So It's in a picture format, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I really appreciate all of your time this morning. You really have a lot to offer the world, and you really have a lot to offer, especially women that have gone through similar traumas of abuse and, there's the same cycle. You're trying to stop the cycle. And for that, I commend you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for giving me the platform to share my story with the world, because it's all about is helping many people as I possibly can, and reaching out to more and more people is what it's about.
So this was definitely one of those jaw-dropping conversations when you realize the magnitude of what someone has gone through and who you're looking at today, of taking that circumstance, which is huge, and changing it, really making it something that will help so many other women, and just living the life she's living is helping. So as she said, there is links below, and I would absolutely love you to follow Ashley Michelle to encourage her and to help spread her word out to more people. If this podcast today was beneficial to you, or you feel that someone would benefit from listening to it, that it would help them, encourage them, inspire them, please share it and leave it a positive review as well. It does a lot for the podcast to just bring it exposure and bring it out to the hands and ears of those that may desperately need it today. Until next time, let's keep building one another up.